What's up, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Fanstake Radio. I'm talking to Howard University Chief Program Strategist for the men's basketball team, Daniel Marks. And Daniel's a former scout for the NBA. He worked with the Bucks for a while, and he's building something really awesome in DC with the Howard University basketball team. And it's been an absolute delight working with him. What's up, Daniel? Great to have you on here.
Appreciate you having me, Ben.
Yeah, I think it's been fun working together over the past few months. So for listeners' context, Fanstake partnered with the Mecca Society and Daniel to help start getting fans involved and raising funds for the team so they can continue to be competitive when it comes to recruiting and retaining the top ball players to come play in DC at Howard. And before diving into some of the partnership stuff, I want to talk about you, Daniel. I want to hear your story. I think fans have this perception that to get into the front office, you have to almost be a player. Was that the case with you? Did you play ball at a high level?
No. I played ball all through growing up, realized pretty quickly I was not going to play in college or beyond that in the pros. So when I got to college at Vanderbilt, I was a student manager for the team for 4 years. So that was my entry into working in sports, was as a student manager. There's a ton of different pathways into the industry. I think in the past, maybe it was, be a former player. And there's definitely jobs that are lean towards former players. Like a lot of NBA teams have on-court player development coaches. And usually those people are just retired players who can still play 5-on-5 or do drill work and like actually guard the NBA or G League player. So certain demographics are not going to be like as sought out in those roles. But in terms of getting into the front office, there's people that started in business, people that started in media, people that worked as managers, people that played in college. Like there was all sorts of backgrounds during my time with the Milwaukee Bucks of how they ended up in the front office. So there's not one specific path to getting there.
It seems like the common denominator is just a passion for the game. So did you, when you showed up at Vanderbilt, were you just, how do I get involved with the team?
No, I was kind of, a big reason I went to Vanderbilt is because it was SEC sports and I wanted to go to a school that was big time college athletics. So that was a big reason I chose Vanderbilt, but I wasn't set on being involved with the team. I initially was like writing sports for the student newspaper. And then the head manager at the time sent out a message to the freshman Facebook group for Vanderbilt class of 2013 and said like, hey, we're looking for people to help with the program. If you're interested, shoot me a message. So we had lunch in the cafeteria and I was like, all right, this seems like something I'd be interested in, but I don't want to commit to doing it full time. So initially I was like a part-time office worker. I was DVRing games. I was letting visiting teams in for practices or shoot arounds. I was sending recruiting mail outs back when you used to actually hard send, pictures and graphics out as opposed to just doing it digitally. I was watching film on random players that would send, CD-ROMs or DVDs of themselves in and just kind of helping sort the office, stocking the fridge. And I liked it, so did it full time my sophomore through senior years. But I didn't go to college saying like, I want to be a manager for Vanderbilt. But given kind of what basketball managing has become and the prominence of former managers, Mark Daigneault with the Thunder was a former manager at UConn and won the NBA title. So like managers have gotten a ton of press and attention and opportunities within sports. So now, we have a huge student manager program here at Howard, but there's organizations like Grow the Game, which provides manager to manager networking and resources. Like there's so many opportunities for students that I think a lot of students go into college if they realize like, hey, I'm not good enough to play, but I want to stay involved, go into college saying they want to be managers.
Yeah, it seems like just a great way to get close to the game, to learn, and really to network as well. During your time at Vanderbilt, Would you ever run any scrimmages with the boys?
No. I mean, I would do some shooting competitions, but I was never close to good enough to. I mean, we had 3 NBA guys on the team and a number of other guys that played professionally. I was never close to good enough to playing. And now the players would sometimes go to the rec in the off season and play with the regular students, and I would hop in those games. But like in terms of actual practice, like playing 5-on-5 or anything, no chance.
Yeah, I think the only move that I could think of there would be challenging a college player to a one-on-one game to 1, and I start with the ball.
Yeah.
I think that's something I could go for. Other than that, I don't know. That's really cool. So when you get to the Bucks, and from what I researched, it looks like at the Bucks you were formerly scouting players. Were you focused? I'm curious how like the scouting departments work. When you're scouting for the Bucks, are you focused on college conferences, overseas? What does the department look like?
So every department is different across the NBA. With the Bucks, we like some departments do like there are certain scouts who do just pro, just college, just international. With the Bucks, you kind of did a little bit of everything. The philosophy was this scouts to know as much as possible about all the different leagues, whereas some organizations are like, I just want you to be experts on this one league or this one level. But it's very kind of dependent on the individual organization. So I wouldn't say there's like a best way or a right way or wrong way to do it. I think it just depends on how many people you have on your staff, what your resources are, and how you want to kind of allocate people's abilities.
That's really interesting, especially like when you have that optionality to flex focus. And I would imagine, a lot of these scouting departments are pushing more resources towards the European markets. It seems like the Bucks might have been a little bit on the forefront of that. Did you notice a tangible shift towards more resources, or did you notice a tangible shift in the scouting department with putting more emphasis on European players?
In terms of like after Giannis?
Yeah. Was there a moment that you felt like an aha moment that the organization felt of, hey, we can get an edge by focusing more on scouting European players?
I would not say that there was like a tangible moment where that was the case. Obviously, Giannis was like a tremendous hit for the organization, and it was an unbelievable accomplishment to find Giannis kind of out of obscurity in a lot of ways. But in terms of the like, is there more focus on Europe? I think as a league, there's more focus on Europe. I mean, you look at the number of European superstars, Giannis and Rudy Gobert and Luka Doncic and, Dirk before that. Like there's so much talent, Wemby, coming in from Europe. So I think it's been a league-wide shift to like understanding. And I think it really started probably with the Spurs, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, Thiago Splitter, Marco Bellinelli. They always did a great job of identifying these European guys as part of their core roster and really invested a lot of time and efforts into it. So I think that was kind of the start. And I would say it really has kind of taken off league wide. I wouldn't say the Bucks put any more emphasis on it than other teams did, just because I think the realization was like there is this incredible talent overseas, whether it's Australia, you've got Ben Simmons and Matthew Dellavedova, Joe Ingles, like Dante Exum, like a ton of talent from over there. And it's a global game. So you have people scouting the globe for these players and doing these different events. But I don't think, like I said, drafting Giannis was, a huge win for the organization, but I wouldn't say it's shifted like, oh, let's focus more on Europe than not. I just think the league as a whole and the ability to scout in Europe with film and with synergy and with connections, like the world is a lot smaller now because of all the things you can do electronically than it was, 25 years ago.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Were you a part of that process when it came to evaluating Giannis?
No, I got there about 4 months. So Giannis was drafted in June of 2013, and I started like October 1st of that year.
Okay. It is one of the biggest, and I think hindsight with drafting is always the case, but it is the biggest. Who went first in that draft? Anthony Bennett, I think.
It was Anthony Bennett. Yep.
Alex Len, 5th overall from Ukraine. So it's one of those
yeah, I mean, the best picks in that draft were Giannis at 15, Rudy Gobert, I believe, at 27, and CJ McCollum at 10.
Yeah, CJ was fun in college.
So, yeah, you had like Michael Carter-Williams, who won Rookie of the Year, but then kind of fizzled out. You had Nerlens, Noel, Victor Oladipo, before he got hurt, had a pretty solid career.
So I love that you just touched on Rookie of the Year. There's another Rookie of the Year that I think you were a part of bringing to the Bucks organization. Can you tell me about the recruitment or the scouting and draft process when it came to Malcolm Brogdon?
Yeah, so Malcolm, great guy. I still stay in touch with him. He played here for the Wizards this year, so got to see him a bunch. Malcolm was a guy that was projected like a top 20, 25 pick. So he actually wouldn't come to work out for the Bucks because we had the 36th pick that year, the 10th pick and the 36th pick. And we weren't going to take him at 10. So his agent's like, well, he'll never be there at 36. But he had a foot injury in college that was pretty significant. And some teams didn't clear him medically from the foot injury. So it ended up a situation where he fell to 36 because of that foot issue. And we were like, okay, well, this is a guy we had rated, somewhere around the 20 spot in the draft, and a second round pick, let's take him at 36. And he's a high character guy, was in the master's program at University of Virginia, ultimate leader, great person, to have in your locker room and on your team. So it was really an investment kind of in the person and the ability, and just kind of lucking out that he ended up falling to 36 because of that specific foot injury. And he's ended up having an 8 or 9 year career since that injury. But there were teams concerned. So that's kind of how he fell to that 36 spot.
That must have been such a great feeling when you have someone on your board and you're just sitting there waiting. I think you kind of alluded to it, but you have a University of Virginia 4-year guy that's projected high or has a good season, and they start the fall. That might be a good guy to pick. You have Malcolm Brogdon, Rookie of the Year, and now you're seeing Ty Jerome, maybe 4 or 5 years after being 5+ years after being drafted, but coming off a great season. Obviously, I know these guys went to school there.
Virginia's done a great job. I think Tony Bennett did an unbelievable job of identifying high character players that are really talented. And a lot of times because of the system they played at Virginia, which led to a ton of college success, but it was a very slow paced system. So a lot of these guys, once they got out of that system, were really able to elevate their game and take it to another level at the pros because the spacing was better. The pace was quicker. A guy like DeAndre Hunter, who, redshirted his first year at Virginia. And then, but the number of pros they had, even Anthony Gill, who had a long stint with the Wizards as sort of like the 15th man, just high character, knows his role. Joe Harris had a great career. Justin Anderson was in the league for a little while. Malcolm, you have a ton of guys. And then, other guys have gone on to success overseas. Darion Atkins, Kyle Guy, Akil Mitchell. I mean, he just a really, really great job of building that program into what it became.
Yeah, it's been
Brian Dunn, Mamadi Diop.
Brian Dunn's a really interesting one, and I think I have a couple questions on that. Like Brian Dunn's an interesting one where I think within 3 games of the NBA, he made more 3-pointers than he attempted his entire senior year of college. And Virginia obviously was struggling offensively. Do you ever run into when it comes to Howard basketball of maybe having a ball dominant guard, but the role that you need them to play is to hit threes in the corner? Something along those lines of, do you ever have to try and change maybe a player's tendencies or style on the court to fit the Howard system, or does it kind of work the other way around?
It goes both ways, I would say. You know what guys do really well. And we have a system called EGBs, energy generating behaviors, that is kind of the lifeblood of our program. It's all things that have nothing to do with scoring the ball, but rebounds, dapping your teammates, sprinting the court in 6 seconds, talking and pointing on defense, deflections, loose ball recoveries, those types of things. So if you don't do those energy generating behaviors, you're not going to play here. Like, it's
I
that
love that.
simple. And in terms of how you fit, like, some guys, we try to take advantage of what guys do really well and put them in positions to succeed. And, whether but there are times where it's like a player thinks like, hey, I should be shooting threes. And it's like, well, you're shooting 65% from the basket and you're an elite cutter. So like, why don't you focus on that, where you have to kind of, it's a push and pull, but you want guys to feel like they're developing and they're improving their games. You don't want to put anyone in a box. Like, coach doesn't do that, but it's also like, hey, like, this is what we need from you right now to be successful. And if you master this, then you can kind of get on to that next thing.
No, that makes a ton of sense. And it's crazy how I'm more of playing at the park these days. And I'm playing with a guy who's 6'5" and he's jacking up threes 2 feet behind the line. I'm like, buddy, you got to get inside. And it seems like, that's something that at any level, you're going to have people who want to take threes and who might be shooting higher efficiency in the paint. That's good stuff. Did you ever see the movie, completely separate note, did you ever see the movie Hustle with Adam Sandler?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, great movie.
Yeah. So how does that, how accurate is that?
There's definitely portions of Hustle that are very accurate. And then there's other portions that are very fictionalized. Like, I think, the character played by Juancho Hernan Gomez, Bo Cruz, he was if he was draft eligible, there's no way he would have just been able to sign with Philadelphia unless he like actually went undrafted. So there's like certain, liberties that were taken, but in terms of the process of how you evaluate players and scouting them overseas and going to the obscure parts of the universe, that's definitely something that happens. But also, you wouldn't have, someone who, because I think Adam Sandler's character was employed by the Sixers. You wouldn't have him working out or training, the Bo Cruz character. Like, that would be a total violation.
Okay, interesting. But would you say there is a similar element when you're scouting somebody of building a real personal relationship with that person?
There's limits to what you're allowed to do. So like, you're technically not supposed to have contact with players until they officially declare for the draft. So a lot of times, like, if you go to a practice to scout, like, you'll say like, hey, I'm Daniel Marks with the Bucks, and all the players will come, shake your hands after practice, but you're not supposed to call their parents, like, have conversations, take them to dinner until they actually go through the draft process. So there's like a 2-month window where you can really build those relationships and have those interactions, but it's not like a years-long thing.
Okay.
But you're gathering intel from people that are able to know and interact with the prospects for years and years and years. It's just you can't be the one interacting with them directly.
Okay. Yeah, it's awesome to ask you about, because I think everybody watches that movie and is like, that's awesome. I want to do that. That seems really cool. And it's like, is that even real? Is that really how it goes down? So it's really, really interesting to hear your perspective on it. I see behind you, and I've got to ask, I see some hardware behind you. Tell me about that trophy.
Yeah, so that one specifically behind is the 2023 regular season trophy, and then we have our conference tournament trophies there as well. So lucky enough, when Coach Blakeney got the job in 2019, the Howard hadn't had a winning season since 2002. So he had the first winning season in 20 years during the 21-22 season, and then the first NCAA tournament in 30 years, which was my first year with the program, was in 2023. And then we won it again in 2024, won the MEAC tournament. And so it's been really neat to kind of be a part of the revival of Howard basketball. And, being part of these championship level moments here that not everyone gets a chance to go through, especially here where there was such a downturn from the mid 80s when the program was really good to the early 90s, and when it kind of went off a cliff in between then and Coach Blakeney.
Interesting. Yeah. And listen, there are some diehard Howard basketball fans, as I've been learning, getting to meet some of the folks, shout out the Bison brothers. Those are my brothers now.
Yes, they do a great job.
Yeah. And just, you can hear the passion. Like my guy Ewash is a dentist, and he loves Howard basketball. I want to understand, what's it like for the Howard basketball team in the locker room after losing to Kansas in the 2023 NCAA tournament? What's that speech like? What's the environment like?
So that was kind of a unique circumstance. We were up in that game like late in the first half with about 5 minutes left in the first half. We went up by 1, and then kind of fell apart a little bit down the stretch. And I think they were up 8-10 maybe at halftime, and then just blitzed us in the second half. But we really competed with them for the first half of that game. Like it was not a typical 1-16 kind of matchup. And that team had the second most wins in Howard history with 22 wins. And there was a sense of, damn, we really went this far, and it's over. And some, but a lot of encouragement in that locker room too, because of everything that went into the season and the way that they turned the program around. And at the time, we only had 2 seniors on the team. So the thinking was like, everyone's going to be back. And, I remember players like, hey, we'll be back here next year. Don't think about this. Like, we're coming back. And then a lot of them ended up transferring, and we had a kind of a new roster the next year, just the reality of college athletics. But in that moment, there was definitely a lot of pride, a lot of sadness that it was over. And then the other thing too was Kamala Harris was at that game. So the game was in Iowa, and she wanted to give a post-game speech to the team. So, coach went through his thing and the team went through it. And then we walked down the hall to where VP Harris was waiting, and she gave I'm so proud, and you've made all of the Bisons proud. This is amazing to see you guys from what it was when I was in school. And the players were just kind of dejected because it was we lost, and she's giving the speech and she's so energetic, but it was they weren't really in the mood for that type of thing. And there was
Read the room, Kamala.
Yeah, there was a couple of comments on the post damn, they just lost by 29, that's not the mood. And they all appreciated how cool it was that she was there. But given that, the season just ended and it's the last time you're all going to suit up together, it just was if we had won or she had done it pregame, it would have hit very differently than after just kind of that crushing of damn, the finality of the season.
Oh, that's an awesome story. I think that's why I was so curious, because I watched Alabama State and they win on that game-winning buzzer beater, and then they lose in the first round. And I think it is still they outperform their expectations. And I think when you do that, it's still a tough pill to swallow when you lose. Always, it's an emotional game. When it comes to the transfer portal, for a program like Howard, is being at Launchpad school to some of the Power 5 programs actually a good thing, or is it still dejecting if you lose a player to Creighton, let's say?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely look, when I was in school at Vanderbilt, we had guys there 3-4 years, and you could really build a continuity within the program. That's just not the reality of basketball, in college basketball these days. And every person that was on the all MEAC team at the end of the season this year that still had eligibility remaining ended up transferring. So it's a reality, not just for us, but for other schools. And I think, at first you're damn, this sucks. There's no disputing it. We found this player, we developed this player, we poured a lot into the player, and it was a great opportunity. And we think that they can reach their goals from Howard. They can play in the NBA. They can play overseas. They can get a great degree. Like, that hasn't changed. But it's also like, whereas I think in the past it was like, oh man, this guy transferred, and you're kind of bitter about it and different things. Now, it's like we had a point guard 2 years ago, Elijah Hawkins, transferred to Minnesota and then transferred to Texas Tech and started for an Elite Eight team this year. And Steve Settle just signed a contract with Miami Heat after 2 years at Temple. And it's like, do you wish they were going right from Howard to doing those things? Absolutely. But, Howard was an integral part of Steve's journey, and he helped us win the 2023 championship. He got his degree here, and, he'll always be a part of that history at Howard. So, when we talk about our stories of success in the program, we do mention those guys. And hey, maybe it isn't your dream to play at Howard for 4 years. Maybe you want to go to the NBA after 2. Maybe you want to go to a high major after 1. Like, you have to be open to the fact that most people, when you're recruiting them, whether they're transfers or high school kids, are not planning on being at the place that they start.
Yep.
And that's just the reality. And it's like, okay, well, when they're here, whether that's for 9 months, whether that's for 36 months, whether that's for 48 months, if they stay for 4 years, can we best position them for success in whatever they want to do after they leave? And if we've done that, and stuff happens, whether it's NIL or just other opportunities, like that's just the reality. You can't take it personally, because if you take it personally, you'll just eat yourself alive.
That's great. I love that. And I think on the flip side, it makes the players who do become one jersey players. Same thing in the pros, where it's special. And one of those players coming into this season is going to be Bryce Harris, Mr. Howard, who seems like he'll be the leader of this team. What are your expectations for Bryce and the 2025 Bison team heading into the season?
Yeah, so Bryce is a great, story. My first day on campus was at the start of the Howard Jumpman partnership. They did a launch event with Bradley Beal in the auditorium on campus when Beal was playing for the Wizards. And I literally had met a few of the players at pickup, didn't even, none of them really knew my name or anything, but went to this assembly and they asked the students, like, if you have any questions, line up behind the microphone to ask a question. And Bryce got up to the microphone and was like, hey, first off, I heard you had a new baby, like, congratulations. And then asked a question about how you kind of stay focused and stay confident in yourself when there's all this noise outside on social media, and, how you continue to believe in the work. And like, the fact that he would get up in front of probably 800 to 1,000 kids and, ask that question and be really excited to the opportunity to meet Bradley Beal was just very indicative of who Bryce is. Like, he takes advantage of all the opportunities on and off the floor that the school has provided. He does his own music productions. He is in a fraternity. He gives campus tours, and in addition to being a first team, all conference player. And Bryce, 2 years ago, averaged 16-7, was really high expectations last year. He hurt his foot a few games into the season and missed the rest of the year. And then he did put his name in the transfer portal at the end of the season and kind of weighed his options and talked to different schools and, understood like the legacy that he has at Howard and the connections that he's made and the attachment that he has to this place. Like, whatever happens, it would be more meaningful for him to do it here. And that's really, really special. And we're really lucky to have him back. But it's very rare. It's very rare that that's the case in these days, but it does make, the fan connection, the connection between the player and school, like, that much stronger because of how infrequent it is now.
After two MEAC championships back to back, what's the next goal for the team?
I mean, Coach Blakeney wants to be in a Final Four at Howard. He doesn't believe that Howard just should be content just making the tournament. Like, he thinks that we should be a program that is doing things at a very, very high level on and off the floor. And he doesn't want to just be content with like, oh, well, this hasn't been done at Howard before, so that's a really high bar of success. It's like, no, he wants to do what Duke, where he played at. Like, he wants to get Howard to that level.
Oh, I love that. That's exciting. And I think if you're a Howard basketball fan listening to this and you hear that, like, this is the time to tune in. And I think, I'm hopeful that new fans ride with the program and join in. And even if they're, old fans being resurrected, I went to a bunch of St. John's games this year because I live in New York. Not a huge St. John's. Now I am. They're winning. So it seems like winning always helps. And you guys have been doing it the last few years, and hope for another season of it. Well, Daniel, thank you so much for joining. It was really interesting to pick your brain and to hear some of these stories. Really appreciate it. And we will catch you next time on Fanstake Radio. Like, subscribe, ask any questions in the comment section, and we will be sure to get back to you.